Well, hey, welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio. I am your host, and today is a homecoming of sorts for me. We are recording this show in the radio station of KGRG, located at Green River College in Auburn, Washington. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of, I guess I would call it kind of sort of the state of the union of KGRG, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about the legacy, but more importantly, we're going to talk about the future of broadcasting and multimedia here at Green River College. Very briefly, I've because every podcast is somebody's first podcast. My show started here at KGRG. I was on the air from August of 2015 to July of 2017. And basically, this is where I found a passion that I didn't know I had. Like I've told this story 1.5 million times, but I'll tell it here in brief. I came to KGRG as a Green River College IT student, and I saw a flyer in the hallway that says, "Be on the radio, KGRG," and I got bit by the bug and found a taste for broadcasting, and it's this is where my radio career begins. This is where my interest in podcast begins. So this place has always been special to me. You've heard me recently resurrect the Monday Project with my co-host Elijah, and we got downright nostalgic. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit of nostalgia here, but really kind of the focus of this conversation is to just really kind of talk about the future of this place and how hopefully it will continue for generations of radio kids. So that, radio for the kids, by the kids, continue to still be a thing. But more on that as we go. I'm not just here by myself. I am joined by two iconic titans joining me here in the studio. Over in the production room, our evergreen chief engineer of KGRG, it's Jon Kasprick.
Thank you, Mike. I'm here.
And joining me over in the newsroom, and I love that in true KGRG fashion, we're actually using all three studios so that I could actually refer to these places geographically for folks listening on a podcast that can't see any of this. Yeah. But joining us over in the newsroom, the director of broadcast operations for Green River College, it's Jeff MacMillan.
How you doing? Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me up. This has been exciting. We spent the first part of our day kind of taking a tour of the very empty facilities as it is a summer session here at Green River College. So we had the occasion to kind of look around, and to the surprise of nobody, it looks pretty much the same. Like, the iconic circle pit area is still there. All of the broadcast studios look very similar to the way that they did when I broadcast here last, with the exception of they've added a couple more microphones. Like there's a new microphone in the production room to kind of build out that room a little bit. But we spent a lot of time kind of talking about what the future of this place is, and really kind of the impetus for this was Jon had reached out to me a number of weeks ago, asked me if I was interested in doing some content for alumni shows as we're getting ready to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the call letters and radio station of KGRG coming up next year. And of course, I'm always excited to come back as alumni and to support and kind of do my part. And I kind of accidentally became part of like this inner sanctum circle of fellow alumni folks, JP Garcia and a handful of other folks. We kind of became like alumni wranglers. We were doing content on our own, but we were also kind of reaching out to our friends that were still in the scene. And it really just kind of rekindled kind of the spirit of radio, that old chestnut there. And through that process, we've kind of learned some things about how things are going at the radio station at Green River College, and really kind of what the future looks like. And that's kind of what we're going to kind of talk about here today. But again, once again, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, and every podcast, every show is somebody's first show. Jeff, you and I are meeting in real life today for the first time. So it was it was nice to get to meet you. I mean, obviously, we've corresponded over Facebook and email, but there's nothing like meeting face to face, and I think you cement a certain fraternity when you share a microphone with somebody. So that's so now we're all radio acquainted. But for folks that are meeting you for the first time, Jeff, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and kind of how do you get here?
Well, I guess I start in chronological order. I was born. I had a family. Really where it was, I think, when it kind of gets to broadcasting is I was over at Central Washington University as a student. I was getting one of my bachelor's there at that time, and I fell in love with radio. And I had this amazing program over there that was on the verge of closing down right before I had got there. And they had hired a gentleman from the outside, Travis Box, who had worked in Seattle for years, incredibly outstanding individual, just has the mind for being creative and getting everybody to buy into his philosophy. And when I came in there, I wanted to kind of push the bar as a student and see what I could get away with. And where I was is he said, okay, but here's how you have to do it. And I fell in love with that. And by the time I was getting ready to graduate, 18 months later, we had done some pretty amazing things. We were the 2015 Intercollegiate Broadcasting Systems College Radio Station of the Year. We had developed a sports program that was now, had taken the commercial coverage of Central Washington University sports, including football and basketball, and brought them in-house to be done by students, the entire broadcast. And it was outstanding. It gave me the opportunity to do play-by-play. Multiple friends of mine had the opportunity to do play-by-play and really kind of kickstart our careers in this industry. And when I got to graduation day, I had a job. I was ready to go day one. I was going out into the radio and broadcasting world with all these skills that I'd learned, not as part of classes, but I'd learned in the station. And I looked back at all my friends that had done their degrees, their digital media, their journalism degrees, or their film degrees. And only one other one had a job day one when they were walking out besides me. And I felt terrible. And so from there, maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks, I was at a major broadcasting company and I was doing my HR paperwork, and I got a call from the dean of students at the time, Dr. Keith Champagne. And he said, hey, would you like to come back? Travis has taken an amazing opportunity somewhere else. Would you be willing to come back in July and be with us for 90 days? And the company that I was signing up with was like, oh yeah, 90 days, no problem. Like, we won't really need you for the things that we asked you to do until, X amount of time down the road. And I'm like, this is great. This is wonderful. Went back and fell in love with being there, and fell in love and felt that need to want to help my friends. I didn't want to look back and see the next generation of Central Washington University students or students from the Berg leaving and not having jobs day one. And we flipped what we were doing with that entire division of student success. And we really became not just the radio station, but all of our student success was, we want to help students get jobs day one, prepare them for the industry outside of classes. This was that co-curricular activity. This was that activity space for them. And we did. I mean, that became what I was known for, was connecting with professionals, putting students into jobs day one, whether it was on air, whether it was producing major shows, whether they were videographers, social media professionals. And we became a full service station on a college campus, managed by professionals, run by the students. And, I did that for 7 years, and I kind of got burned out. And COVID seemed like the perfect time for me to step away. Mm-hmm. And I stepped away and joined the foundation at Central Washington University. I love the foundation work there. But an opportunity popped up at a place where I always said, gosh, if I could get that station and we could do what we're doing at that station, at that call sign with what we're doing here, like, how amazing would it be? And COVID changed broadcasting forever, changed podcasting, changed radio. It sped up what was already happening, but it meant it put it into light speed. And when I came here, there was a lot of concern and of what I was going to do and how I was going to make it. I mean, I wanted to be that counterculture piece. Man, how do we go into that market and continue that history of counterculture and KGRG? And man, we're edgy and we're different. And along the way of my time here, I realized, hey, a lot needed to be done if we were going to serve these students, if we were going to make this place into something amazing again. So, yeah.
So, Jon, we've been kind of in nostalgia mode for some time, again, doing these alumni shows. And for folks that might be joining us for the first time, because who knows, maybe somebody on their podcast app just typed in KGRG and they're just kind of, this might be from ground level. But in brief, and I'll kind of get Jeff's remarks in a moment, but kind of like, what does KGRG mean to you?
Oh, that's a good question there, Mike,
and a very deep one.
Yes.
and could have deep answers or shallow answers.
Yeah, so I'll try not to go too deep and get stuck at this point, but no, KGRG's been around for a long time, and I've been associated with KGRG most of that time, I think. Mm-hmm. And back when I was a kid, I would listen to local radio stations and some distant radio stations and wonder, well, how does that all work? And it's not really, oh, I want to listen to that person or, what that person. It's the station. I mean, how does this work? So when I graduated from high school, I came to Green River and discovered KGRG. And this was an opportunity to see how things work. And what ended up happening is that I became an integral part in keeping things working over the years. And it was fun. I got to, being an engineer, sure, I got to work with some interesting equipment and do some fun things like that. But it's also about the people and the relationships. It was kind of a family here, for many, many years. And people of the family would come and go, but they wouldn't go too far. They'd still be around. With social media now, we can still stay in touch on Facebook and whatnot. Alumni weeks or alumni season, whenever we bring the alums back on the air, it's like a family reunion. This isn't a full-time gig for me, but it would be fun if it would be. I could say that.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And it's interesting too, like with these lifelong connections that we kind of make, like, so in this alumni search, I guess we would call it, I reconnected with folks that I have not talked to in 7 years, sometimes longer. And it's interesting how you just pick up as if no time had passed. So for me, the kind of the spirit of KGRG has always just been like friendship. Friendship through making damn good radio. So that's, kind of like at my most nostalgic, I guess that's just kind of what it means to me. So Jeff, kind of coming into this institution, I guess, if you will, not to be too hyperbolic about it, but really kind of coming in, what does KGRG mean to you?
So I didn't grow up in the Seattle area. I grew up down in Portland, Oregon, and then I lived in the eastern part of this state. I've lived all over the U.S., Texas, other places along the way. But for me, I'd heard about KGRG originally from older alumni at Central Washington University or staff members. And they would tell me these stories about the station that created alternative rock. Oh man, this is the place where Kurt Cobain and Nirvana was discovered and all these other things along that way. This was the place that played the Beastie Boys for 24 hours straight to cleanse your palate of whatever had been played that was terrible, something along those lines. And I said, so this place boomed, especially, and I'm not discrediting any other time frame, but a lot of the boom and a lot of the nostalgia that we talk about comes in that mid to late 90s. Mm-hmm. And, how this place was essentially the foundations for some professional radio stations in the area that will stay unnamed. And they found that piece of counterculture. They found that piece of angst and that being ahead of the curve, not the curb. That's what I hit with my car, but being ahead of the curve. And that's what it means to me is this place was cutting edge. This place was for the kids. This place was ahead of, the trend. And that's kind of where we're hoping to go now, because along the way, I think it kind of lost that, especially through COVID. It lost how to be ahead of the trend. It lost how to be the voice of the students and of the young people. And the hope of what we're trying to do right now is changing that a little bit, because KGRG was a place where bands were discovered. Yeah. And I do not, and I know that this riles the people up, I do not believe that that's what college radio is for anymore. Spotify exists for a reason now. Other bands will be discovered. There are other ways and better ways to discover bands. I think that what KGRG becomes in the future is the place that content is created and that we create talent. And we create content and talent for the future. And we create the next professionals in the video, radio, broadcasting industry. We create the next professionals behind the scenes. We create great media and we create talent and we find people jobs day one.
Absolutely. I love all of that. That makes me feel very encouraged, because really during my time, so like I was out of here in 2017, and I did receive a little bit of pushback from this when I said it, but I feel like my class of students was kind of the beginning of the end. And what I mean by that is that was kind of in a time where enrollment numbers were going further and further down. Classes were getting cut. Classes were being conducted, with only a couple students. The board was empty. No new specialty shows were rising up. Nobody was taking DJ shifts. And then, of course, as we were talking about, COVID kind of put a lot of nails in a lot of coffins. So when Jon reached out to me, he had also kind of told me about what the future kind of looked like, and he said a lot of the things that you were talking about, Jeff, that kind of like the focus was going to, in a way, shift from traditional radio on-air broadcasting and be more of a multimedia facet, focusing on podcasting and video production and things like that. And the buzzy word that we keep using is content creation, because really that's even in professional radio. So even at my shop where I work professionally, the folks that work over at the music station, sure, they're radio personalities, but they're also YouTubers and TikTokers and podcasters. And so really kind of what the meaning of the word broadcaster has changed and developed. And so rather than crinkling my nose or being worried when Jon shared with me some of kind of the philosophical shift that we're talking about for what KGRG will become, instead of being discouraged, I was encouraged. And the thing I said as soon as I hung up the phone with Jon was like, it's about time, because I felt that, now this is just me editorializing, but I feel like the way the philosophy had been kind of outdated and kind of had been for a while. Even when I started here, it just felt like we were kind of doing the same old things and getting the same old results. And so, as I said, I was kind of excited that kind of like a new philosophy was kind of coming in.
Content creation as a term is being kicked around quite a bit, but that's what it's all about. That's kind of, if you look back over the ages, that's really what it's all been about.
Yeah.
And the mechanism used for creating and distributing the content has evolved over the years, and KGRG also has to evolve. It's not as much about being the jock on the air that creates a persona that attracts people to you. It's about talking about the concepts or the content, conversations. We're seeing a lot more 2 and 3 and even 4-person shows. People are talking about a content. If you're a listener, it used to be that you were listening to a single person's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a lot more exciting to listen to a group of people talking about a concept or, sports or or Transformers or
Yeah.
or anything. And that's really where it's going. We need to teach people a little bit about how to run radio, but also about how to create the conversations and how to conduct and edit and produce good conversations. And that's where I see the future, and I see a lot of people that believe that as well.
Yeah, I love that, John. I think that's like we were saying, discovery of bands and sharing music, and really hot take. I mean, I think I'm going to get some heat for this one, but like music was always kind of like on the lower rung for me. And it wasn't until I finished my studies here at Green River that I realized, I'm a talk radio guy. I didn't even know, because I always bashed up against that rock of the DJ's job is to add decoration to the music, to kind of be like a decorative wallpaper. And I'm like, screw that. I tune in for the person on the mic. I want to hear what they have to say about the music. I want to hear about the events they're going to, those kinds of things. So personality is what always kind of drove me to radio. And like I said, it wasn't until I was working in radio professionally that I realized, I'm a talk radio guy. Who knew? I think it's because talk has kind of been normalized in some of like the hot rock and flame throwing big time rock stations here in town.
Music is always going to be part of KGRG. It's always going to be part of the generation of the students coming into the college. Back when I was here starting, music was a whole lot different than it is now. And I remember one of the things that was told to me is, to be successful in radio, you can't think of the music. The music cannot be your inspiration to be on the air and create the content. Now, having said that, there's a trade-off there.
Yeah.
It's also very important to understand the music, be highly involved in the music, if that's the station that you're working with. And it's, for the listener, most of the time, it's all about the music. But Mike, as you said, having some expert commentary and saying, this band is going to be in town next week, or there's a new album coming out, or there's a change in the bandmates, somebody's leaving, and all these kind of things. That's the cool information. That's the content, music-oriented content that I think we need to be focusing on more. And music will always drive people. Like Jeff was saying, music now, new music discovery, and these kind of things. There are other media outlets to discover that music. I'm certainly not going to believe that KGRG will never ever do the concerts and these kind of things that have made it so popular in the starting with the 90s and 80s, 90s and on. But the music discovery is different nowadays than it has been. So we have to roll with that.
And I think altogether content creation is different. And we talk about the buzzwords. I'm going to roll back real quick to some of the things that we were talking about. I think that when you were getting ready to leave, I don't think that it was the same old that was causing the problem. I think that there was competition popping up that had never existed in this state. I mean, you had Seattle University opening up a radio station at about that same time. You had Central Washington University that was putting a lot of funding into that station as a college. They were building and pushing an amazing program. And there was a lot of recruiting going on that had never happened. And on top of that, and this will get me heat, as you've said, heat.
I love it. That's what we're here for.
I think 110% is the prior management was actually outstanding. And no matter what people's opinions are of the management, what was being done, I think that it had more to do with the bureaucracy of what's around than what was going on between these walls that was causing the problems. And, kind of that downturn. It was a change of philosophy going on around this place. And in the suits above, as we will say, we always got to make a bad guy, so let's make them the suits.
Right.
And I think that the people that were in here and the staff that was in here were doing everything they could to keep this place afloat while they were battling things that no one on the outside would know. And so now it needs a change. And the reason why you make that change is because you have to change the opinion of everyone around you. You have to get them to buy in. You have to use buzzwords. I have glad handed my way around this campus to everyone, to get anyone and everyone to buy into what we're doing and to give us just a little crumb of hope and of their attention. And it got people to buy in. Now we have to deliver. And I think that as we talk about what it is what is school? School is essentially supposed to be that place you go and spend your money. And then from spending your money, you're supposed to get a fancy piece of paper, and that's supposed to lead you to a job.
Right.
And so that became our number one thing. Hey, we can have fun and we can build content and we can do a lot of these different things, but everything we're going to be doing is getting reps so that when you walk out of the door, you are ready for the professional environment. You are ready to have better ideas than the people that have been sitting there, fossilizing for a long time in their chairs, because there's not a lot of turnover in the broadcast industry, especially in the old mediums, the newspaper, the radio, the TV even. And if we can put people into those positions with great ideas, if we can open the door and kind of get those things sparking in their head, it doesn't matter what music you're playing.
Right.
And I think that the other thing that you talked about was, man, I'm a talk guy. Everybody's a talk guy. Or a talk person, I guess is the term we use. And I think that it's no longer, our industry is no longer about, coming in with the radio puke voice and give you 89.9 KGRG, we're playing the stacks back to back to back, we're spinning the wax, it's all that stuff. Nobody wants that anymore. And there's a very small handful of people that are the Shelly Hart that can come in and give you 10 seconds of on air or less and get their personality out. No, now let me tell you a story. That's why everybody's tuning in at a podcast. They want something to relate to. They want to hear people with the same struggles as them. They want to hear about their bad day. That's why they doom scroll on TikTok and all these social media apps, is because they want to see things that relate to them. Well, we've got 7,000 plus students on this campus that have something that relate to them. Now we figure out who our target audience is. We let them talk about the things that matter to that audience and to themselves. It becomes genuine. It kind of opens up. We teach them how to do everything the right way. We teach them skills that maybe they wouldn't have normally learned while on campus. And bam, they're ready to open that door into that next step of their career. And I hope that we can build that. I hope that in 2 years when we look back, we are cutting edge, we are industry standard or better in everything we do, and that our students are either on air, building great podcasts, maybe they're the engineers, maybe they're the people setting up the remotes, but they're working full time. They're making a better than livable wage. And maybe they aren't even in this industry anymore because this industry is in flux and there's so much more you can do related to our industry that is just so broad that you don't just have to be on the air at a radio station, that you don't have to, work in TV and be, go do stand-ups in the middle of, the snow up on Snoqualmie Pass. I don't actually know where you guys go. They used to send a guy down in Troutdale for the Portland, and that guy would just get blistered with snow. But you don't have to do those things anymore, and you don't have to go to the small market to succeed, because if you got the skills and you can build the content, you can do a lot. And that's what I think that we're building to the next thing. There's a 3% increase in this area in people that can put together broadcast and media technology. And that's what we want to be the home of. So, yeah.
I love that. I appreciate the explanation and the philosophy. Now, from a certain angle, that sounds very esoteric and philosophical. So let's kind of address and wade into controversy a little bit, kind of get your waders on, because we're kind of get into it a little bit, because there's a couple different avenues I want to go down. First of all, Jeff, one of the first things that you corrected me on in our early correspondence, it's like, I've talked about, oh man, I always want to be an ally to KGRG and the broadcasting program. And one of the things you kind of set me straight is that the quote unquote broadcast program, as it was when I was a student at Green River and a personality over at KGRG, that's changed and developed in ways. Maybe let's talk about that first before we kind of get into the format flips and all that other fun stuff.
So I think some of that starts with what the 4-year universities did. And people are going to listen. They're going to be like, well, you don't need a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree to get a job in the industry. You're 100% right. Nobody cares. But you know what? It increases your opportunity. And if you're looking for TV, a lot of TV on air people have to have that experience. So how can we get that skill? Well, the 4-year colleges along the way basically kind of isolated and built in their way to do the fun stuff. So when you used to go to college, you'd go, oh man, college is terrible for the first couple of years, but once I get into my program, everything is great and I love my life and it's so wonderful. And that's really what they kind of did, is they put all the fun stuff at your 300 and 400 level class, and then they made rules. Hey, 300 and 400 level, we don't accept any class that is above 200 level as a transfer credit. So then you have that, and then you have the colleges in the state of Washington going to the thing called guided pathways. And guided pathways is a way to serve students, and it is a way to build, essentially a roadmap that doesn't cost them extra money, that doesn't waste their time, and gets them in, out, and into that next step of their life, whether it's a 4-year college or whether it's a certificate that gets them into the industry that they're looking for. And a lot of the things that we do here at KGRG on our broadcast side and the journalism side, well, that's 300 and 400 level. And those things aren't transferable except for maybe elective credits. And they're not 1-for-1 elective credits. And so that became really hard. Is the second I walked in, I was like, we're going to do so much great stuff. We have all this great things that can happen. And then I realized, oh, wait, I forgot this is how it's structured. So what they need here, what you come to Green River College for in the what we'll call the transfer market, building that 2-year degree to transfer to a 4-year, is you're taking your English, your math, your history. You're getting all of that stuff in the guided pathway taken care of. Well, all of our stuff sits on the outside of the guided pathway. And the colleges don't pick it up because that's where, the Murrow School wants you to come and take their journalism classes. They want you to take their broadcasting classes. If you're going to go to a Central Washington University, you're going to take their broadcasting classes, their communication classes. And this place kind of got left behind in all that. And so, well, we can just update everything is what everybody thinks, except for whatever we update, they're not taking. They don't necessarily take that. So we have to figure out a way for us, to put things in that they are going to take. And a lot of those are already comp study classes that are already taught on this campus. So you can get that great, hit the ground running, your feet moving, and you're going to go to a 4-year university and it's going to be great. So what does our program serve? Well, our program, I see our program eventually, and this is the controversial topic because we haven't got there yet.
Right.
I think that we become a technical education, and we can build a 4-year technical education. We can build a 2-year technical education. We have great talent in Jon and myself and a lot of faculty on this campus, but there's a lot of professionals who have come through this place too, that we can tap on the shoulder. I know, Jon knows, everybody knows a lot of great professionals that want to give back to students and want to make that next generation. Can you imagine, having the opportunity of having a professional sportscaster, maybe somebody from a Cairo 710 or a KJR coming in and teaching a sports broadcasting class? Maybe you have somebody from the team over at Cairo News coming over and teaching talk. I mean, there's great opportunities for professionals to teach the next generation of content creation. And just because they're radio or just because they do TV doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. And so that's the thing for me. That's where I'm kind of pushing us to. And that's where I think that when we talk about the credits and we talk about what doesn't work, that's why we have to make a change. We can't just be like we've always wanted to be. It can't be, hey, take journalism 115. Yeah, you can come take it, but that class isn't going to transfer for you. You're taking it for fun. And the college is not going, all of the colleges in the state are not going in the for fun direction. Mm-hmm. So we need to figure out how to get it into something that is a path that gets you to the professional place. And we think that if we can find a way to make great content classes, communication style classes, that we'll have some great content creation there. And then on the flip side, we can connect a great IT or technical degree that can do something amazing. And we have we have great assets on this campus, including Jon, that will be able to build something amazing for the future. And it's something that can go long term.
That's awesome, man.
There's a lot of stuff there. I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome. Jeff, I appreciate your passion. Because KGRG alumni, we could be really closed-minded and really for being a bunch of punk rockers, we could be really reluctant to change. And I think that's kind of some of the undercurrent that's kind of going in, like, you know, in like some of the alumni groups and as folks have been talking. And unfortunately, Jeff, you've kind of been in the crossfire of some of that because whether you wanted it or not, you had some big shoes coming in. Because, you know, I mean, previous management was very well loved, and you know, obviously Tom is well loved by many of us amongst the alumni group. So I don't envy you that position of having to come into the program post-COVID and trying to find a way to not only protect the legacy but also protect the future, which is important to all of us as well.
Yeah, and because I had done this somewhere else, prepared me for a lot of it. I mean, this is what I did at Central. I took over for my mentor, and I took what was that college-style station, that indie alt station, and we ripped it down to the bones, and we went to we will call it a student-friendly CHR format. And CHR is very loosely termed when we say that, because we were talking about it beforehand.
Yeah.
And so I know the pushback. There are Central Washington University alumni on this campus that were part of that radio station over there and told me how great it was in the 90s and the 2000s, and that when I took over, they hated what I did. Except for, you know, what's great is, you know, you had 100+ students every year without a problem volunteering in that program, that you took that program to new heights, that you have hundreds of plastic trophies and you have hundreds of students working in the industry. And it was hard because I can remember walking around my backyard in my first day in my new house. And I said, how am I going to get them to buy in? Because they're not going to. The alumni are not going to buy in. Right. And they don't need to. And that's the best part, is I want to make sure that I'm doing the best I can to respect them and that I can honor everything that they've done, because you don't just want to erase it. But they have to understand that it was cool when they were here, because they were cool. They were ahead of the head of the times, and they were doing what was pop culture at that time, or what was popular. Now we're not there. Right. We aren't even serving the students. The students are out here and they are listening to music that I just don't get. It is a large K-pop population in this area. That's a lot of the feedback we got. There is a huge Latin music influence going on in the industry right now, and that's what a lot of our audience on the campus wants to hear.
Right.
And when we say that, people forget that's who we serve first and foremost. We have to serve the students. It can't be about the rest of the signal. It has to be about the students that are paying the fee, that keep the doors open and the lights on. And it's about the students getting in here and then creating that content and getting them to buy in and getting them involved. And that's the thing that is hard, because it would be really easy to go make a station that would be so successful in this market that is not CHR based or is not X, Y, and Z based. We could pick a format and we could go there. There is no real new hip hop station, rap hip hop station in the area. You could easily fill that void. We could have done that. We could have taken the void filled by that second country station disappearing just a few months ago. And I think there's a niche that we could have filled easily there. Maybe not playing that stadium style country. You play the older, more real country. But there's niches all over the place that we can fill, but that's not our job. Our job is to serve the students first and foremost, and then we try and make it work. And that's the worst part. Is everybody's like, well, what if we just did this? Well, you know, Jimmy, Billy, Tommy, and Susie here on campus, they don't want that.
Right.
And we want them here because we need them here, because they are our lifeblood. They are our commodity. They are the piece that we have that is what's going to make us great. And then when the number one commodity that this college has is the trained students that they will push out. And that's what our number one commodity will be. And that will build us and grow us and make us great. Whether people like the sound or not doesn't really matter, as long as what we're doing here is training them and getting them ready day one to be professionals, and it's getting them in the door.
Well, and the thing, and again, to kind of put some pushback against my fellow alumni, it's like, how often do you tune in? How often do you listen? how do you engage? That kind of thing. And I feel like, again, it's just kind of interesting being aging punk rockers, where it's just like we feel like sometimes things just need to be encased in amber when it hasn't been that thing that you remembered for some time anyway. So it's been just kind of interesting to see some of the discourse. I've told this story before, but one of the heartbreaking moments I had when I was hosting my specialty show is like I had a number of international students that were part of the rotating cast, because like here at Green River College, there's a significant transitionary international student population, folks that come and go. And so we welcomed those international students that were maybe taking Radio Lab for a fun class or something like that. And I remember there were times where some of my quote unquote interns would roll up with songs that they would like us to play. It's like, hey man, could you play some Neo or some of this? And I'm like, sorry, that's just really not part of like the music philosophy of all that. And that moment kind of came and went, but years later, that resonated with me in that a Green River College student and an enrolled student was not being served by the program that they were being a part of. And I'll never forget that.
And it's hard to serve everyone. That's what you have to remember. So what we're doing is we're trying to serve the largest portion of our population of students here. And then we will build outward to expand that. You cannot make everybody happy, but boy, we're going to try. and it's going to be tough, but it starts and ends for us with the students here. Now there is the alumni.
Yeah.
And Jon has been the most wonderful ally for me in navigating this, because it took me a long time if you were a part of this station and you wanted to talk, you can call my phone number and I will talk to you anytime you want, and I will give you the spiel, and the spiel is exactly the same. And I think for everybody who's met with me, I would say, let's say 95% of the people that have met with me, I think they buy in, and I think they go, okay, like I get it now. Like I get what you have to do and why you have to do it that way. And I get that it's probably going to succeed, but man, this sucks because this is not my place. And it isn't. And that's why some of the changes we're making are specifically done so that we don't ruin that piece that's capsulated in amber, all those memories of what KGRG is, that red and black, that punk rock, the hardcore, the alternative. But I can tell you right now, when I got here, you know what the most staff said to me on this campus? They said, oh, KGRG, Nirvana played here. Do you know Nirvana played here? Hey, did you know Nirvana played here? And I was like, yeah, do you know that none of our students that are going here, not none,
right,
but quite a few of our students were not here for that. Oh, yeah, but, I'm sure they love Nirvana. I see them in shirts all the time. No, those are sold at Target, and the kids just wear them. Oversized. It's trendy right now. I see them wearing professional wrestling shirts. They have no idea who the NWO is or who, Hulk Hogan is. Like it is this weird thing where maybe we peaked a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then we've been on a slow downhill run. And then COVID just kind of dropped the bottom out. Exactly. And that's a great place for change. What we did this year is so that we could see if we could save and build something great here. And with Jon's help and forced help, I had to do a lot of forced help. He's had to work tirelessly to help bring this station up to standard and what we're going to do. And without Jon, one, helping me navigate all of the alumni, B, this place itself and the technical follies of this place, and then C, kind of painting a picture of what the bureaucracy was going to be like for me. And I could tell you I didn't listen enough because it was a lot worse than I. Yeah. So yes, I understand. I think where we were originally going, as I got off on a tangent, is everything's got to change.
Yeah.
And I've had great support. And for everybody that doesn't like what we're doing, it's not for you. And that's okay. We have to do it for the students. But the door's still going to be open. The door's still going to be open like this. We're doing alumni season over the summer because we figured out a loophole, and we can keep doing this. We can keep having alumni shows come, when the students are away, and we can do these great things. We're going to still have the KGRG 1 encapsulating that, what KGRG really is, still available. And we're going to figure out a way that we can involve alumni from here on out, because this place means so much to the people that came through. And when a guy from the outside comes in and starts pitching all these ideas, they think, oh, he doesn't care about the things that happened before. And the full thing, I don't. But I do care about the people that came before.
Right.
Like, I could have easily just, hey, let's put up the brick wall and let's build this and let's do it our way.
Absolutely.
But it means something to somebody. It means a lot to Jon. It means a lot to other people on this campus. They know that it needs to change, but they didn't know how to get there. They didn't know how to make that change. And, I've had a great person riding shotgun in this process, with Jon along the way.
Yeah.
And he's helped me navigate my immaturities and my inability to sometimes be the cooler head. Jon has been the coolest head in a lot of meetings and in a lot of conversations that have happened, because for me, the only thing that matters at the end of the day is that we're building the best program in the nation, and we're building a place that is going to succeed long term. But Jon knows so much more about what's gone on here that, without him, I would have made a lot of mistakes and a lot more enemies than I already have. So yeah, and it's okay because that history of this place is always going to be here. We're not going to throw it away. It's not throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Right.
It is building something great for the future and remembering our alternative past.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Well done. Well done. So like when JP and I first started messaging, and he met with you before I did, and he just sent me a very simple message. He's like, he's a radio guy. He gets it. And it just a simple, he gets it. So, and that instantly put me at ease, and that has a lot of credibility for me. But as we're kind of sort of winding down, I kind of want to jump in and address some rumors head on. But one of the things that we talked about off mic before we started recording, and you guys had asked me, it's like, well, Mike, what are you looking to accomplish here? I was like, well, there's been some information that's been misinterpreted. There's some misinformation that's been misinterpreted. And I'd like to kind of see if we can set the record straight. And Jeff kind of gets this mischievous smile on his face, and he's just like, oh, misinformation. Good. Let's put some more misinformation out there. And I realized that in that exact moment, like I had known you for less than an hour, and I'm like, oh, this is a guy that can find some trouble. I get it now. This guy likes a little bit of trouble too. So I appreciate that with kind of the KGRG aesthetic there. You're not exactly what I expected. Let's put it that way, in a good way, in a good way. Because, again, it's like, when you meet new people, especially when they're the custodians of the legacy and the future, it's like, there's expectations, and sometimes you don't exactly know. But one of the things that my mentor, Charlie Harger, has told me is like, there's the perspective of our kind of guy. Or as we were saying in more inclusive language, our kind of person, and I definitely kind of feel that connection there. But we've spoken a lot of philosophical stuff in broad strokes. Let's kind of talk about format change. I'll be honest with you. I was when we were doing the alumni season stuff, I was fully expecting to turn on 89.9. on my drive up here this morning, fully expecting to hear a rock block of Bieber Fever with a side of T-Swizzle. And I got none of those things. I just heard, the things that I've gotten accustomed to hearing on today's rock on 89.9 FM. And so let's kind of talk a little bit about format change and maybe timetables and kind of what the future of today's rock is.
I think so. I think it all starts with technology on timetables. I think that's the first thing. John and I have a bunch of fancy equipment. John has a bunch of fancy equipment that he has to put in, and I will hold the flashlight as much as I can for him. Hey, am I holding it in the right spot, John? And John's going to get, these studios put together so that we can start with the new stuff. We will be running Zeta. We will be running, upgraded versions of Next Gen. Everything in this place, much to John's dismay, is going to be touchscreen.
Sure.
Right, John? To your dismay?
Oh, I'm kind of an old-ish radio guy, and just having buttons to push just makes me feel comfy. And if they're virtual buttons, I can't touch them. They don't respond the same. But that's just me. Kids don't have, kids coming through the program now aren't going to have that same, I guess, tactile baggage, if you will.
I like that.
Tactile baggage.
They're well versed in virtual touch screens and these kind of things. So, and that also simplifies a lot of things. It gives us a lot more flexibility. So we'll see how that works out, and we'll make it work.
It could be terrible, and we could be putting hard boards in shortly. But but I think that one of the things that it brings to the table is allowing us to say, hey, you know what? What does the board at KVI look like? We can build that virtually, and they'll know where everything is. So if they've got to do a board op gig and they're a part-time employee over at Cairo, KVI, KTTH, Hubbard, iHeart, wherever that may be, we can build that board so that they know where everything is, so that they can have that process. Maybe we're learning Zeta, so they might not know Music Master, but Music Master is about as easy as it comes to learn. So technology-wise, it'll take us some time to get this technology in. We have to work at the speed of the college around us and the bureaucracy. And I'll tell you what, the college found out how fast we can get something turned around. They've never dealt with someone that will push and push and push. We got our funding on the 19th of May, and we had to have everything quoted through the 2-week process of the state's quoting process, and we had to have it shipped and received by the 30th of June. And they've never done anything that fast before. Every one of them tells me, it's not my Donald Trump. Oh, everybody says we did it faster than anybody ever before. No, this is, they were always in shock, and we got everything here. And now we've got it all locked away in rooms, ready to go. We've just got to get through some of the bureaucracy, who handles what, and then we get to start putting things together. And then once that happens, then we build the clock, we put all the new music in, and what was the biggest concert that we had in Seattle in the last 5 years?
Taylor Swift.
It was Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
So that means that there's people listening, right? There's people listening.
Yeah.
You will hear CHR format. You will hear Swift. You will hear some EDM. You will hear Latin artists, because that's what's dominating your Billboard charts and your Spotify charts. Really, you look at Billboard. I think that Billboard is kind of out of touch. You think Billboard is about 6 to 8 months behind. Yeah. We're not going to be that. We are going to be new music, churn and burn, get stuff out there, because that's really what KGRG was great at. It wasn't that they were today's rock. It wasn't that they were, the place that had grunge. It was, hey, this is the place that played new music.
Yeah.
We're going to play new music, and we're going to churn and burn it and get it through quick. We'll have it on quicker than everybody else that's out there in the market. Yep. We'll be doing songs that you might not hear. The number one song for a long time was a song called, I'm going to ruin it, Ela Baila Sola by Peso Paloma. That song's completely in Spanish. I would have played that song day one. It's a bop. And I think that if it was number one on Spotify, streaming for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it was number one on the Billboard charts for weeks and weeks and weeks, but nobody in the market was playing it, why can't we?
Right.
Why can't we play Taylor Swift? Why can't we play the things that people want to hear that are going to drive them here? And Flowers, Miley Cyrus. I think that was the first thing that went in, and John's like, oh.
I quickly went to the other studio and played some classic rock.
We had the team from the basement come in, and literally I put it in just so they could see it. I was like, oh, what are they going to do?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So is KGRG flipping to, we're going to do lightning round here. Is KGRG flipping to R&B? Question mark. No.
It's just going to be something a little more current.
Is it top 40? Yes or no?
It'll have some top 40.
Got it.
It'll be what's popular. We'll use a lot of the streaming charts. You will hear hip hop. I doubt you'll hear R&B. Actually, R&B doesn't chart that well.
Right.
But you will hear a lot of CHR. You might hear some country. You might hear. You're going to hear K-pop. You're going to hear K-pop. It's what the students on this campus really want. You're going to get some new rock here and there. It's going to be a hodgepodge, the potpourri, if you will.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Well, and really, it's all in the spirit of what we had talked about earlier, is representing the student body here on Green River College campus. And that student body represents a lot of transitional international students. There's a huge Asian population. There's a huge Latin population. And so there's and that was, I mean, going even further back, that was the thing that appealed to me about coming back to a community college as an adult. I looked around the classroom and I saw a bunch of people that didn't look like me, and from different age ranges, different walks of life, and it made me feel really good. I look back on my time here at Green River College very fondly and very affectionately, and I think it's terrific that KGRG is moving towards representing that as well.
Every voice will have an opportunity to be represented. And really the biggest thing is, and this goes to anybody that's listening, music doesn't matter. The music doesn't matter. It's a tool to get students in the door and feeling comfortable. It's the content that they're going to put together. Listen, we will teach, that turn and burn jock, the 6 seconds and out, we will have a philosophy of, never stopping the clock, but really no, we're going to stop the clock. And it's going to be different. There won't be the single specialty shows. That's probably another one. Yeah. It's not going to be, hey, the 10 o'clock to midnight dead air, show that happened before. No, students will get reps. And that's the most important thing is you need experience and you need reps to be ready day one.
Yeah.
Where I came from, we had a philosophy of if you're going to have a show, it's 5 days a week, same time, same bat time, same bat channel, same bat place. So that's where for us, that's going to be. You're going to do 5 days a week. If you want to do 1 day a week, it'll be a weekend show. It'll fall under the formats that we use. And you'll be able to create great content. And there'll be great talk content as well. So, yeah. And we haven't even talked about the video studio John's building.
Yeah, no. Well, I guess that would be a good transition to that. I'll ask you about KGRG 1 in a minute. But yeah, let's...
Oh, we could stay with KGRG 1 because I think John's got an amazing idea there.
Yeah. So one of the things, John, you told me is so we had talked so much about the format change for KGRG FM and playing today's rock on 89.9. And, we talked about all those examples that we just discussed about, new voices and new influences. But John just kind of raises his hand a little bit. He's like, we do have another radio station, and that even kind of goes back to a little bit of the attitude during my time here, where it's like, oh yeah, KGRG1, that's still a thing. KENU, that's still a thing, because you remember those meter readings that you had to do. You're still monitoring two towers when you're on shift there. I looked around in the KGRG studio while I was here, and I don't see a clipboard for meter readings. I was almost going to do it for old time's sake, but maybe not.
I can find you a blank sheet if you'd like.
No, that's all right. Well, what you got to do is you got to give me the phone number to call in. Yeah. KENU. And I don't remember all of it. But anyway, John, I kind of took us off course a little bit. Tell us about some of your philosophy about what KENU, what KGRG1 could potentially become in the future.
Well, you mentioned KENU, and certainly that was when we first picked up the AM station. Those were the call letters, and we eventually changed that to KGRG, which the FM then became officially KGRG FM. So that station has gone through a variety of things. It was a country station for quite a while, and it even had it was the Pulse for a while, so kind of an EDM club, house, techno kind of thing. And, a few years ago, some great people, including Rob Kendrick and a couple others along with him, put together this classic alternative, which was kind of evolved from the alternative past kind of thing. And so it's carrying on some legacy of the grunge, post-grunge kinds of music that, still we still have a lot of listeners that enjoy that kind of stuff. And I want to keep that legacy going to the degree that makes sense. And I think part of that is moving what's currently, or at some point had been on KGRG FM, integrating that with some of the more classic alternative music, and still building an alternative music station, keeping that music alive. So if we want to call it, like a timeless alternative, something that spans the generations, so to speak. So we have people that have been involved in the station in the 90s when grunge came in, and beyond that. They're now at the age where they have children that are in the demographic that the college is interested in. And there's still an alternative community in that age group. Think of different music types. For example, I grew up in the classic rock, which is now called classic rock era. My kids, which are old, they still, and for a long time, they still have liked that kind of music. But they have their own as well. So there's sort of a respect for the stuff that the parents grew up with. So KGRG1 is kind of approaching that concept as well, where there's the music that I would say the demographic would be male 30 to 50, maybe even 25 to 40, somewhere around in there. And their children would be able to share the appreciation for that kind of music. It's certainly as viable as the FM station is going to be, as far as anybody who wants to go on the air or learn to operate the station. I mean, KGRG, this program is going to have the ability to walk into just about any studio and program any station that we have, and go live if necessary or if desirable. So there's going to be great flexibility. We're going to have music types that are going to be of interest to a broad range of students still. I mean, we walk around campus and there's still an occasional, students that look like, I bet they like some alternative music, or they're young punk kids, or, more of a young adult alternative kind of thing.
Sure. So not quite the alternative past, not quite classic alternative,
and not quite the alternative future. Yes.
Yeah. I gotta go back in time.
There it is. Sir. Wow. So exciting stuff happening on the on-air side. We talked about it just a moment ago. Let's talk about the future with regards to like video and podcasting, and as we transition into the thing that I wanted to talk about but forgot to bring up like an hour ago, upcoming classes and how you could be a part of all this stuff. But yeah, so Jeff, you had mentioned something about Jon working on a video studio. What's going on there?
I think you could take it to start with, Jon.
Well, I guess to kind of present it at the top level, we're looking at podcasts, and I mean, radio's dead, right? But content creation isn't. It's much more alive than it's ever been because of the opportunities and the way to distribute your content. Podcasting sure has a good appeal, but we've been doing audio-only podcasts. And if you've watched some video podcasts, or even listen to some audio podcasts, I guess, you can tell that there's a lot of improvement that can be done. And that comes through training, exposure, having the facilities available for the students to learn how to do these things better. And I think that's a great contribution to our program here, is to add the video element, not only for podcasting, but for any other video content, whether it's for students or supporting students through our college relations and other organizations on campus. So, Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on how this is going to all work out? I know it will, but I mean, you're a great presenter. You can describe it much better than I can for them.
So where we are is the first thing that popped in my head when video started becoming readily available in radio studios, I remember the Intercollegiate Broadcasting Systems, which is like one of the college little bodies, and CBI also out there that do the awards. They put an award called Best Use of Video in a Radio Studio. And I was like, that's the dumbest name for an award. Still to this day, I think we've won 3 of them where I was before, but still the absolute worst name for an award maybe ever.
Yeah.
And I said, what does that actually mean? And I went, oh, you know what? That means let's figure out a way that we can put video in these studios. And I looked at Cairo. Cairo had their website for a long time where you could see everybody doing the shows and you could see the studio empty as well. And, you know, the engineer over there was looking at upgrading their camera system. We had a conversation with them and pitched them on a couple of different ideas of products that were out there. And they went with a company called HDV Mixer. And that's the company we'll be using here is HDV Mixer. Essentially, it's going to be a multi-camera shot. 4 cameras is what we have. They automatically changed based on decibels and time that there's talking. So you don't have to know how to change the camera. But oh my gosh, you can do that too. You can produce your own show. You can set it up to be like a news studio. You can set it up to be just you and your friends podcasting. We could throw a couch out there, but we will not put couches in the studio ever again.
No couches ever.
Oh, R.I.P. Big Red.
But we will have that ability where you'll be able to come in and start making YouTube streaming content, where you will be able to make Twitch streaming content. And it's all going to be one button. It's all going to be easy to pick up and learn. And then that'll get you sucked in. You can come in as a volunteer, and volunteers here will be doing content. That's it. When you're a volunteer, you do content. The paid students will handle, you know, the heavy lifting of the scheduling, doing editing on the videos and stuff like that. And then you'll have this bug that you just got bit by because you're like, my gosh, look at how great this is that I'm doing. And that'll open us up to this next generation of classes that we're going to be pitching and this next vision of a more technical heavy new media engineering style that we're going to. And I think that video is going to be outstanding for us. COVID sped it up for everybody.
Yep.
Everybody got on a Zoom, and then we got to see how bad it looks. Right?
Yeah.
You can see the worst of everybody. They're using Skype. Man, I feel bad for Skype, man. They had all that time and failed as COVID hit.
Yep.
But you look at that and you say, well, gosh, that looks like just people talking on their Zoom.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be that. We will give you something that is better. We will give you something that has a multi-camera shot, overlays, the ability to drop in video on one touch off of a touchscreen pad. You'll have the ability to take that video show live on Twitch, on Facebook, on Instagram, and you'll be able to go over the FM airwaves. Let's say we've got a show where you're just talking about Transformers. Let's say, you're doing the history of Transformers, man. And if we can figure out a way to make sure that you are trained in what you're talking so that it's not so visual oriented and that you're talking for both audiences, well, gosh, now we have content for both of them that people will listen to. The things that people want to hear is what we're going to go after. If it had been a couple of years ago, people loved Marvel. Now they hate Marvel, or, everybody hates DC.
Right,
but they can
right.
talk about movies. They can talk about those things. Everything that you're complaining about on Twitter or whatever it's called now, everything that, all 5 of you on Threads are complaining about, you can now do it in a longer format, with video, and really kind of present yourself and build a brand. Because that's what it is now we can help students build their brand. Now we can help students build their brand while building our brand, while building something great. So that's the vision. The vision is that, and I know it works because it's worked in the past at other places that, I've been at. So it's finding the people and getting them comfortable to step out of, that shell that they're scared of talking about the things they love. The students we had in here last year, over the last school year, their love for K-pop was alarming. The things I learned and the videos they made me watch, I wish I can't unsee, and unknow this stuff, but it's so interesting how they are so involved and interested in something that is, thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away, happening overseas. And that is their big content. And boy, that is the things that we'll be able to talk about. We'll be able to use our our great international programs and have students present their experiences in the United States and why they came over here through the multiple forms of media that we'll be able to offer, really kind of express that back to other students that are living in their home countries and really kind of expand the brand of Green River College because, we were a community college, with Green River Community College forever, the Harvard on the Hill. But now we can be something so much more. And this is the start for at least me, is it's not just KGRG.
Right.
It's not just the streaming stuff that we're going to do. It's building a student media platform that empowers students to start using their voice and creating something and build confidence and build a brand and learn how to do it professionally and do it consistently, and something that they can just hit the ground running with and let their ideas flourish, because that's what I kind of became where I was before. Is I wanted to be the guy that you come to me with an idea and I'll do the best I can to make that idea come true.
I tell you, man, again, I've said this before already, but the passion is infectious. It's like, I want to sign up for classes. It's like, I want to come back and participate in some of this stuff because it just sounds so incredibly exciting. Like, like we spoke about before, radio DJs or podcast personalities or whatever, they aren't just one thing. It's no longer fragmented. It's all together. Everybody's a podcaster. Everybody's a YouTuber. Everybody's a TikToker. And you kind of need to have all of those. Otherwise, your brand, your presentation is going to be missing something.
Yeah. I mean, you've worked in the industry for a long time. How many people have fallen behind in the industry because they haven't adapted with the times? Oh, I don't want to make the social media content. I'm only paid to be on air. And they will fall behind. I mean, that's some of the things that stand out to me. I had a lot of friends in the industry that got let go during COVID.
Yeah.
And one was money, but two, this was an opportunity for some of those companies to get out of their deals because they wanted people that were making new forms of content and media, or they wanted people that maybe were cheaper. I mean, let's be honest. That's what happened.
Yeah, of course.
But boy, if we can give them someone that is 19, 20, 22, 23, 24 years old that can shoot videos, set shots on camera, knows how to light shots, can do Instagram stuff, can do stuff on TikTok, can also go do a YouTube piece and can come in and do their show. Well, man, they're going to be happy. I know there's one company that is against that kind of stuff. They just want you to write 12 blogs a week. But most of the other companies are looking for somebody that can do all forms of digital media and really build a brand, because that's where the money's going to be in our next generation of media. Is it's all digital. I mean, the cost of a spot is a whole lot different for digital stuff versus the stuff that goes over the air.
Exactly.
I want to take a slight tangent here. We've talked about international students and those kind of things, but I think it's important to acknowledge and give some respect to a person who is now currently involved in the International Village and recruiting international students. And he was a huge impact in the beginning and the early creation of the radio program, and that's Mike McIntyre. Mike McIntyre was one of the first executives or administrators on campus that I worked with when I was a student manager back so many years ago. And he was the director or VP, I guess, of student programs. And I'm looking back at some of the historical documents of the station, and I see his signature on things like the some of the FCC applications and those kind of things way back in the 70s. And at his age, I think he's 90-ish now, he's still currently and actively involved in the international students, international programs here on campus. So I just want to make a respectful appreciation for Mike McIntyre.
Nice. Very cool. So we've talked about the upcoming future, and a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is still a ways out, still kind of like in a bit some of the blue sky period. But if folks wanted to learn more about what's going on with KGRG and taking classes for the upcoming fall session here at Green River College, what can folks take now, and what can folks do to get involved?
I think number one starts with our podcasting class. Jon, what's the number on that class?
That would be Journalism 125.
Journalism 125. So that's a class that is going to, I think, serve a lot of our students that are coming into this next year. And I think that it's a gateway to a lot of the program future that we will go to. You know, Jon gets a really solid attendance for it right now. So I think that that's a great class. I think that they learn a lot. And I think that as we really start pushing the bar to have more opportunity, to create more, and the ease of access to equipment and studios, I think that that's really going to kind of take off the podcasting class even more. Obviously, this year we will have Journalism 115, which is the radio labs. And that's going to be a little different. I think a lot of that is going to be based around not just radio. It's going to be content creation this year. It's going to be how to build that brand, how to do some of those different things, and really how to form quality shows. And I think that that's really where we're going to be pushing that class. Yes, they will learn the technical end, but in the station, we are actually building a student training manual made for students to train students. So we'll have a paid student trainer, and they will train every student that will ever end up on air here. You will have to go through our student training program, and you'll come in as a volunteer, and in 2.5 weeks, you'll be through the program and you'll be on air. When you are ready to go, it doesn't have to be a group show. You can do the one-person show. You can do a multi-person show. Hey, you want to do sports? We're building to that. You want to do talk? Hey, we're doing that. You want to do conservative talk? Heck, our doors are even open to that because there's a market for professionals out there. And so we want to make sure that if you have something that you want to do, we're going to help you learn how to do it in-house here and start building forward. Now, when it comes to classes, I think that for me, the audio production class that we do, and I think we'll probably do that in the winter, and the podcasting class are two huge keys and two very important pieces to our future, because I think that I know that they're going to be there in our long-term plans as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if folks wanted to take those classes, you can find links and information at the KGRG website at KGRG.com. You can also check out GreenRiver.edu, the Green River College website, for enrollment information. And I could tell I'm really rusty on this stuff because, like, that used to be like on my old show. It'd be like, oh yeah, sign up for Journalism 115. Classes start at this time. Registration closes at this time. And I would just like have all that copy just like right there. And I have none of that. So when do classes start for fall session? Do we know? I couldn't find it on the website.
September 22nd, if I remember correctly. I think we're looking at September 22nd around that time.
Gotcha. So if you're interested in signing up for those classes, head over to GreenRiver.edu right now or KGRG.com. That'll link you to those classes as well, and be a part of the legacy and be part of the future of KGRG.
Yeah, I think the best way, probably the easiest way to find out about the classes in the program is, go to GreenRiver.edu and search for broadcasting or journalism. You could even search for KGRG. I think those three paths will get you through some links to some of the classes. And like we're saying, Journalism 125, the podcasting class, which I have to give great appreciation and thanks to Charlie Harger for teaching that class for so many years, and putting together a lot of content. And now I'm able to just kind of run that class. And like we're saying also, that class will be upgraded in the not too distant future. And but that's a good entry point. And the other one is Journalism 115, Digital Radio Lab or Radio Lab. Those are entry points. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, and I've told the story a number of times, but like I started during summer quarter, and I took the tandem of Radio Lab and podcasting at the same time. So I got a very well-rounded exposure. I was doing stuff live on air, but I was also learning how to record and edit and do production. So I think the 1-2 punch of that really helped me out specifically.
We're mentioning these two classes. Another class that really is so important to both of those other two, taking your skills to the next level, is the audio editing class. And that would be Journalism 140. And there we start with some of the basics of recording and sound, but we get into how do you properly produce and edit podcasts, interviews, various things. We're working with Adobe Audition. We get into all kinds of things, multi-track editing. At the end of that course, we're working with 24-track stems from like a Bohemian Rhapsody or, some, complex popular song. I actually did have one student that contributed their own backing vocals to the chorus groups for one of those songs.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, this person has a talent that we need to nurture somehow. So, that's a fun class. I really enjoy teaching that one. Like I said, it's essential. I mean, if you start out with podcasting, it's an intro to podcasting. There's really no equipment or microphone barriers. Most of the students just come in there with their smartphone or even any phone that can record audio. And we don't get into editing a whole lot because it is an introduction. Mm-hmm. The next logical step is, okay, now you've got a nice piece of podcast audio. You've been recording for half an hour. There's a lot of ums, ands, uhs, and other noises and retakes and various things. Well, how do you actually edit and produce that to make it sound professional? Mm-hmm. And that's the goal of Journalism 140, the audio editing class.
I've used some of those skills in this very episode you're listening to, whether you heard it or not.
and you did not hear it.
Right, exactly. Invisible, seamless production.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You did not hear that first here.
Talking about introduction to podcasting a little bit, it just reminded me of one of my first experiences in a class. We had a student, Abby, and she had recorded this podcast. They were short, like 5 minutes or something like that. And like her audio and vocal sounded so clean that we thought that she had like come into the studio and had learned all these techniques to like sweeten it up. No, she locked herself in her clothes closet and talked into her iPhone, and but it was still like some of like the smoothest, cleanest audio I've heard, and it still blew me away, and it just kind of underscores how low some of these barriers are, whether we realize it or not, in terms of like access to technology.
Yeah, and I think the podcasting, I mean, recording in your closet is a whole lot better than recording in the bathroom.
Yes.
There's a little bit of critical listening studies, exercise in there, so you can kind of hear what's behind the voice and other sounds in there.
I guess as we think about closing out, the 50th anniversary of KGRG is, it's an iconic legacy, and hopefully through listening to this podcast that folks kind of understand some of the legacy and the value of the future, and will be interested in continuing that by being part of classes, because really, as we've learned, it really is up to the students. And for this to continue in any form, you need literal buy-in from the students. So, those tuition monies go towards making all of these dreams reality. So I really just kind of wanted to make sure that, we spent our time kind of underscoring that. Really, in a sense, like I'm outside with my bell, like, sign up for classes, that kind of thing.
And I think that we actually have a slight change in philosophy. Like, I do agree, yes, we need students in classes. But come February, when that 50th anniversary is, that's when we're also having the vote. We have a vote every year of, will we get money or not? Will the students fund us? The student committee sits around. They hear our pitch. The pitch is going to be shorter than ever before next year because of the new rules and stuff that they're doing. And they decide on a vote of 6 students. 6 students decide, will you have funding or not? This year, we had more total funding than we've ever had before in the history of this station. Top to bottom, it's been quite a bit. But flipping that around and kind of talking about those things is, it could all go away in just February of next year. And that's one of the things that, as we start changing what we're doing and we start building to something new, we're trying to build a plan that is going to be long-term, that isn't going to leave us year to year to year trying to figure out, are we there? We need to build a groundswell of support from the current students who leave every 2 years. And then from there, we have to build a new legacy. We have to build something new, because every year it comes down to 6 students will they fund us or won't they fund us? And that handles all of our operation budget, and that handles all of our student wages. And in the environment we are in for higher education, funds are hard to come by. And our funding comes from the students. Now, when it comes to classes, that's a completely different set of funding, and that funds that education. So you can go learn that theory, but it doesn't matter what you're doing on this campus. You can be involved in the natural sciences. You can be involved in IT. You can be involved in the underwater basket weaving. I don't actually think we have that here, but it doesn't matter what you're involved in. You can still be involved in KGRG, in student media, in building content and creating podcasts. The door is open to every student that is paying into the student fund. That's where our future is. It has nothing to do with what your major is anymore, and it has everything to do with what your passion is.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. One last thing, we kind of talked about, encouraging student participation. We know that we have a passionate alumni community. There's Facebook groups, and there's groups of us that chat offline and whatnot. So if I'm an alumni and I'm listening to this and I'm passionate about the future of KGRG, we used to have pledge drives and car bashes and benefit concerts and all of that other stuff that has kind of fallen to the wayside in recent years. But if I'm part of that alumni group and I've been aroused to get off the bench and want to help out, what can I do as an alumni if I wanted to help KGRG?
So I think for us, the biggest thing is getting a hold of the foundation. The most important thing of what we are doing here is we are going to build our current students, but we need support from the alumni. We need support from the companies that the alumni work for or are participating in. That's our biggest thing, is outside participation in the way of donations, in the way of gifts in kind. That's one of the things that got this ball rolling. Hubbard Broadcasting out of Seattle. Actually, they're out of Minnesota, but Hubbard Broadcasting, Seattle. They actually made a very hefty donation of equipment to us that really got the ball rolling and got everybody to kind of open their eyes. And they said, oh, they gave you equipment. They gave you these things that you needed that we wouldn't give you. And it gave us the ground to stand on. If an outside company is willing to help us, but our own campus and alumni isn't, then what's the problem there?
Yeah.
And so now that's what I'm asking. When I say to people, hey, I want to get involved and I want to help, it's not about putting on the giant benefit concert. It's not about putting on the giant car smash. What we can do, because of liability reasons, that's actually a big thing that's changed in the state in the last few years. But what can really kind of take off is how far a donation can go. How far you going to a company you work for and helping them put together something that's a scholarship for students, or that is a fund that goes into this program. I mean, there are so many students that need opportunities funding wise. And I think that will help us immensely. I mean, that's what I would do. I would contact the foundation and figure out a way to donate to the foundation, because that is the best way that your money gets used. 100% of your money is allocated to the program when it goes to a foundation. And that's the biggest thing. The Green River Foundation is outstanding. We are a part of the Green River Foundation. My supervisor, George Frazier, runs the foundation. So it's a great opportunity, and I think that's a great place. But the other way that you can really help is just word of mouth.
Yeah.
We aren't using a PPM meter, so we don't need the listeners. It's not what's going to change the game for us. What changes the game is, figuring out a way to share the content that these students create, figuring out a way to give back. If you don't have a lot of funds, that's okay. A click and a share to a group and talking about the great content you're seeing coming out and the things. I mean, listen, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's okay too. But we need to keep the buzz going about what we're going to be doing going forward. So those are the two ways I think you can help: is share the content, push forward, follow us, see what we're going to do, because it's going to be something a little more current going into the future, and it's not going to be just the past anymore.
I love it. I love it. John?
Well, I don't think there's anything much I can add to that, but I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of the alums that have gone through here, and I understand what their emotions are. Mm-hmm. I would like to see that emotion be targeted towards actually helping the station. in a way that Jeff just mentioned. I mean, if you work for a company or you are a company now that can help with donations or underwriting of sporting events or news or any of those underwriting opportunities, great. If not, show your love for the station by sharing the content that the station and the students from the station push out. I mean, help that distribution, help getting the word out. It's not the listeners as such. I mean, it's the students. If the students are listening, that's great. But I mean, being a non-commercial station, our dollar value isn't tied to how many listeners we have and ratings and shares and these kind of things. We'll teach you all about that, but that's that's not how we built that. That's not our bread and butter.
Right. Absolutely. So, switching topics entirely, just because I couldn't get out of here without actually bringing this up. So, like, both of you guys teased me before we started. It's like, well, hey, we're going to talk about Transformers, right? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And John said, well, I could tell you all about Transformers. And being an engineer, I'm sure you have very specific things you could talk about Transformers. But Jeff, you dropped some science on me. Are you a fan?
I love Transformers. That's what I grew up on as a kid, man. Devastator, my favorite, the Combiner Wars.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved growing up on Transformers. Everybody was like Dinobots. No way, man. Give me some Constructicons all day long, man. I don't like the new movies, not fans of that, but that Generation 1, man, I love that stuff.
That's awesome. So recently, it was the anniversary of the 1986 movie, and if anybody has listened to my podcast for any length of time, I kind of like that movie a little bit. I'm totally underselling it. It's one of my favorite movies, and I saw it when I was 7 years old, blew my hair back, and it's just something that's between like the animation, the music, everything. It's just like it's been everything to me. So I've spent a lot of my time learning how to do content here at KGRG, spending some of that focus talking about Transformers the movie.
That was my first movie in theaters. My mom took me to see it when I was a little kid. Yeah. That's the first movie I ever saw in theaters was Transformers the movie.
Did she go in with you, though?
Yeah. The first movie I ever saw alone was Jurassic Park.
Okay, gotcha. Because, like, my mom dropped me off at the Bay Theater in Ballard, and she went go shopping and stuff. Like, I mean, this was 1986. I was 7 years old. But, yeah, so she let me go see the movie by myself. I had my own money. So it's like I went in and, like, bought a Dr. Pepper and my popcorn and my Red Vines. All of this stuff is just, like, foundationally and crystallized into my brain. Like, I remember, like the brass porthole windows at the old Bay Theater there in Ballard and stuff, and it's just been an unforgettable experience. So anytime like I run into somebody, it's like, wait a sec, so you're a fan. Oh man, we're gonna get into trouble. So well, gentlemen, this has been an absolute blast. I really appreciate all the wisdom and insight and passion more than anything. And it's again, as we celebrate the legacy of KGRG and as we look to the future, any final thoughts before we close out of here? I know we've gone pretty long here and we've talked about a lot of stuff, but anything in particular that like through things either haven't asked or things we haven't talked about, I just want to make sure that the deck is clear before we close out.
Well, we've been enjoying this discussion today, but it wouldn't be complete without talking a little bit more about the 50th anniversary.
Sure.
It's kind of an interesting deal. So I can tell you that, the FCC, well, I should start by saying that back in the 70s, the FCC said, hey, we're starting this FM radio thing, and now we need to teach people how to run it. So let's give this special class of license to educational facilities. So treat them, a little differently than commercials and get them started. So a lot of colleges and universities across the country in the early to mid 70s started trying to figure out how to do FM radio. Green River was one of them. So we filled out the applications, and finally the FCC said, yes, you can start thinking about building it. And that was July 27th, 1973. So that's just a week or so over 50 years. Well, that process took a long time with getting funding and getting a tower and getting all the equipment and getting approval through all the processes and various things. And the FCC finally assigned us the call letters of KGRG and officially gave us the license to operate early February of 1975. So certainly we went on the air before that because, well, we had to do what's called program testing. We get things set up, get it all put together, and let's see if it works. So once you start program testing, then you know everything's good. You can file with the FCC. It says, yep, tell them we've got everything built, we're all good, and here's the information you need to know about it. And then it takes them some time to turn around and say, yep, we're finally approved, and here's your call letters, and you can go broadcast now. There's some debate on when we actually went on the air, but it was certainly fall to winter of 74 that things were actually built, and it was like the tower was put up in the summer of 74. So this 50th anniversary thing has some legs to it, and you're going to hear some things on the station from alums and other people that have been associated with the station for many years, and telling you their experiences along the way. And it's certainly a monumental accomplishment for KGRG to remain on the air with no FCC actions. Believe it or not, they have not forced us off the air at any point that I recall.
Gotcha.
That's assuming my memory is actually good. But I've been associated with KGRG since 1978. The station was just in a little trailer, pretty much on the edge of campus, but we've come a long way. We started the training classes and these kind of things, and boy, I mean, it's just exciting to have been a part of it for all these years, and looking forward to as many more as I can.
There it is. I love it. How about you, Jeff?
It's I don't have the 50 years here, and I don't have 1978. John said when he was here. For me, we're almost on the 1 year day from me walking into this place, sight unseen. I'd never been in the KGRG facility, and I can remember it was different. I mean, it was something. I had to take a deep breath, but then over time, I kind of realized, especially talking to alumni, is that this place is encapsulated. What you said, encapsulated.
Encased in amber.
Yes,
that
encased in amber. And for them, it hasn't changed. This is exactly how it was. Where's the couch? Like everything, everything's the same for X amount of a generation. Yeah. And if they weren't in this facility, then they tell you about being out in some trailer or something like that off the end of campus. But they all have their stories. Yeah. And they all have their memories, and they all have their friends and the great times and the bad times that they were here. And that's what I've loved. I mean, I got to be a part and sit here while Dead Air did their 20 years, and they got all the gang piled in here and doing the show, and it was outstanding because they were just so happy to be around each other again, and it made me so happy to be around them. I think that this place KGRG has produced professional talent. Now, and a lot of people that have impacted this industry. This market alone has been impacted so dramatically by what KGR was doing, has done, and the talent that came out of here that, this is a part of the Pacific Northwest history. And that's why everybody's passionate about it. Yeah. And that's why people are nervous about the changes that are going to be made. And will they hear KGRG, today's new rock, on the air again? No, we're going to have some changes there too. I understand, what it meant to them, but that's the great thing, is it's going to mean something to somebody else next, and they're going to join that legacy of people that were out in a trailer, or people that were in this room, or people that had to use the old boards like the one you're sitting in front of. The students that'll be coming in using touchscreen will join that great legacy, and they'll be different, and it'll be that next generation. We're going to go real Star Trek in here, and a lot of it's going to build to that legacy. We're not going to let this place just, disappear like I think a lot of people wanted it to for a long time. Yeah. Oh, we can just let it go. It's just a radio station. But it's not. That's why everybody's so fired up about it. I mean, it's not just a radio station. It's their memories. It's their histories. It's where they grew up at. And that's what it's going to be for the next group of great young content creators. Can't just call them broadcasters anymore, but what it's going to be, it's going to be their journey now. It's their time.
Well, and one of the first things you said to me, Jeff, before we started recording is like, we were talking very frankly about some of the discourse in the alumni group, but it was just like, oh, but people are talking about it. Yeah. People are talking about KGRG, which is exciting. And hopefully discourse like this, conversations like this, and everything else propels momentum forward as we go into that 50th anniversary and secure the future.
I'm an old school carny. I came up as a young pro wrestler, and that was my industry for a long time. And controversy creates cash. That's what it is. So if they're talking, whether it's good or bad, at least they're talking. And whatever they can say and whatever they don't like and whatever you do like, and it's all the exact same. It's happening. And if you don't love it, then tell me about it. Email me, call me, come stop in and talk to us. Like, yeah, we're busy, but I'll go out of my way to give you the pitch, to talk to you about your concerns. There's been multiple people that I've talked to for 3 and 4 hours on the phone about what we're doing, and they voice their concerns, and I explained to them exactly the stuff we talked about today. Everything's always been the same. Everything that's come out of my mouth, we're doing it this way.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the great thing, is we are going to build on this legacy. We are going to build something new, something a little more current, something with a little different energy. And it's going to tie back into what made this place great for so long. Is friendship, is a place for everybody to be, and training the next best talent. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Very well said. That is Jeff MacMillan, Director of Broadcast Operations at Green River College and General Manager of KGRG. Thank you so much for joining us here today, as well as Jon Kasprick, part of the Associate Faculty here at Green River College, Broadcast Operations, and, of course, the longstanding Chief Engineer of KGRG. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to kind of go down this memory lane as we pave the way towards the future.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I appreciate this.
All right, and that will wrap it up for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to like, share, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. For my guests, Jon Kasprick, Jeff MacMillan, my name is Mike. This has been Mike Seibert Radio, and until next time, make good choices. Mike Seibert Radio is recorded in Seattle, Washington. Our original theme song is written and performed by Lucia Fasano. Get her music on all streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, and check out her Instagram at Lucia_Fasano. Our closing theme song is A Nice Place to Visit by These Young Fools, used with permission from Michael Geissler. Check out Michael's website, bytourmusic.com. Special thanks to Andy Lita for our logos and graphic design. He's at GoGoAndyRobo out on Twitter. Become a Mike Cybertronian and join the MSRP Friends and Fans Facebook group, and you can follow me on all the social media at Mike Seibert Radio on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And check out my YouTube channel for even more videos, and subscribe so you never miss a show. Want to be a guest on the show? Send me an email, MikeSeibertRadio@gmail.com.
I thought it was going to be something like Autobots roll out.
I do that sometimes. I may just leave that in there. That's
Jeff,
fun
do you
stuff.
mean Autobots? Roll out. Oh, I can't do that. I can't do it that
Your
deep.
voice is still 1,000 times better than mine. I'm like, hey there, everybody.
I'm still not in a world quite yet.
There's a lot of people in this world, a lot of them in the world as we live in today. A lot of great people. Nobody as great as me. A lot of them tell me how great I am. A lot of things going on. We're going to do a lot of great things at KGRG. It's going to be conservative talk all the time. A lot of people said they wanted. That's what we're going to do. Very much like KTTH and KVI, we're going to bring you the best in the truth. The truth, as it needs to be told.
The truth?
The truth, yeah, exactly. Oh, that's terrific.
And our favorite color on our logos will still be red.